Hey guys, this is Nathan and welcome to the Gaming Floor. Today in this Unturned Map Editor tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to create a golf course. Now, I'm not going to be making a super detailed one, and I'm pretty much basing this off of golf courses that have already been made, but hopefully this will give you a good idea of where to start. So I will be making the golf course itself over here where I've got a little more room, and these are the items I'm going to be using. So in terms of the buildings I will use, I'm going to use lodge number 2, lodge number 3, and lodge number 4. Generally you should have some sort of main building. Lodge number 4 is for that. Also, these could be side buildings used by the janitor, whoever takes care of the course, or you could just incorporate some sort of resort into your golf course. Either way works. In terms of what the floor of the golf course will be, we've got grass number 2 and 4. We also have Russia grass number 2 and Russia grass number 4. Now obviously this is preference based. If you guys want to have a leaf colored golf course, you can do that. It also looks a lot like lava, so I would maybe suggest not using Russia grass number 4. It doesn't really make sense. But actually, out of the other 3, you could use all of these because they all look pretty decent. The other 2 objects I will be using are golf cart just for decoration and flag number 1, and that'll be for the holes themselves. Alright, so let's get into constructing the golf course. So I'm gonna use Russia grass number 2 just because it stands out a little better on this ground here. And I'm essentially just going to create my golf course. Now I'm going to make it a tiny bit above the ground, and you'll see why as I get into creating it. So pretty much we're going to be using snap transform to outline the area of our golf course. I'm not sure quite what the best is for this. Alright, 2 seems to be a good one. I think the actual size itself, if you want to do whole sections, is 8 maybe. That's what it seemed like. But essentially, guys, just sort of create a boundary for your golf course, and copy paste, control C, control V to do that. And I'm just going to be moving these sections all around to create our general size of our golf course. Now of course you guys can do it the way I'm doing it, selecting larger and larger portions and copy pasting those around. That is suggested, especially if you want to do your golf course really large and make it huge. Okay, so this will be pretty good for our starting golf course. This will be more like a putt-putt course. It'll be pretty simple. I am actually going to lift it up quite a bit more just to get the grass out of the way. Alright, so now that we've got our golf course down, we need to actually terraform underneath it. So we're going to be using the normal height tool. I'm going to make the size a little smaller, and we're going to put some edges on it. So I'm going to start here, and this is going to be a little touchy, guys. This is one of the touchier parts of making a golf course. So I'm going to reset this and try this again. Okay, so obviously strength is way too high. Definitely consider lowering that down. Yeah, this is perfect. Alright, so as you guys can see, I can now put a nice outline around my golf course area. Now, I suggest that if you want your golf course to be roughly normal height, that you dig out an area first and then place down the golf course. And pretty much all you want to do for this is make sure that it's flush against the ground right here. And actually something else you can do that's pretty useful, if you press E, it selects a height, and you can select a height just above your current golf course and maybe make size a little smaller, and you can blend it in a little better and just make it closer to the ground so there's less of a hill. And of course we will smooth it after we are done. Alright, so here we are smoothing the area down. It's just good to do this just to make it more realistic. As you can see, there's a little bit of a lip, actually quite a bit still, but we're not really going to be able to get rid of all of that. We can get rid of a lot of it though just by smoothing, and that'll help sort of make it a little smoother and get a better shape. Okay, something that's starting to happen over here is we've got some of the edge appearing. You're going to want to be careful about that. If that happens, just move it back up again. You really don't want any of that edge showing. It's going to look crappy, and that's not what you want your map to look like. Alright, so once you're done smoothing, this is good enough for me. Just go around the peripherals, go around the edges, make sure none of the edges is moving through. And as you guys can see, a lot of our area is going to be covered up, and that is completely fine. Okay, so here we are. We've got our basic golf course. And let's say this is actually like the putting green. So what I'm going to do really quick, make this look a little better, is copy paste this over here and make a driveway where you're driving to get to that green. Alright guys, so that's a pretty good driving line, and so we've got our basics of our golf course pretty much set up here. Now, as you guys can see, I've been smoothing quite a lot, and this is really important just to have a good flow on your field. And also, as you see, it's raised up a little bit. You can actually lower the ground before you put this in so that it ends up about level with the rest of your map as well. So pretty much all that we have left to do is oops, I accidentally selected some stuff before. We'll just leave that there. All we have to do is place flags at this point. So there's no real good way of making a hole, and that's actually really too bad, but what you can do is place a flag down. So that'll pretty much mark the hole at the end of the course. As you guys can see, it's a pretty huge course actually if you compare it to a normal player size. And of course you can do all sorts of other stuff in between, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So let's put down our golf cart here, just sort of like somebody was in the middle of playing when the zombie apocalypse struck, and we'll leave it there. So let's get into detailing some of these buildings. So generally, the main golf course house itself is going to be usually near the beginning or near the end of the course. I'm going to put it at the beginning just because that's what I want to do. And you can either put it like right on the course. The one issue or potential problem you could have with this is having the ground glitching into it. As you can see, it's happening already. Or you can have it pretty far removed from the course. Something like this would definitely be fine. So either way is cool. It's pretty much your preference. So there's a few ways you can actually decorate this. So I'm going to get out a few of the objects to do that. Alright, so here are a few of the objects that you can use to decorate this lodge number 4. Obviously there's going to be more than just what I have here, but this will give us a good start. So generally, there's a lot of huge areas inside of this building. There's 4 main rooms, each come off of a main central room, and we're going to be using the central room as sort of a sort of community center area, something with like lots of entertainment involved. So I'm going to be using 2 main couches here, and I'm going to angle them a bit towards the center, and I'm going to make them both focusing towards a TV. And of course there's 2 types. I'm going to use the more modern one just because I feel like it really either would work. So it really just depends on what you're feeling at the time. Alright, so I'm just going to center those a little better. And you want to make sure when you're putting couches and stuff like that that you don't cut off walkways on either side, just because it can get pretty crowded in here. Alright, so near the front door we do need some things as well. I usually like putting a wardrobe sort of to hold coats or something like that. And you know, I'll be putting a wardrobe down. Now obviously guys, somehow the house got messed up, like the rotation of it, so I'm not going to be able to put these items in perfectly, but you'll get the general idea. So I'm also going to put a coat rack. Those are always nice, add a little bit more detail, something like that. And we have a bit more room in here. So what we can do is we can put a table, some sort of larger table for multiple people to sit on, or you could even put a pool table. So I'm actually going to put a pool table down. It sort of fits the area a little better, and I'm going to sort of just put it right here, and this fills up the rest of the space. Now of course you guys can arrange this however you want, so feel free to mix this up or put some tables and chairs in here instead. Either way will work. Also, another thing you could do is have some sort of eating area. So I'm going to grab this table here, and I'm going to use this to make some sort of dining room. Now this is a quite small table compared to the rest of the area, so I'm going to use the scale tool, make it a little larger. Actually, probably not taller. I don't really need it taller, but I will make it wider. And that looks about good. Maybe a little too big, but we'll have to squish some chairs in there. Alright, so one of the items I forgot to bring out is chair, if I can spell it right. And you can use any type of chair, metal, wood, really depends on your preference. So I'm going to grab chair wood number 1, and I'm just going to start bringing them in here, and we're going to start placing these around our nice large table here. And you can do 3 to a side, 2 to a side. It really depends on how large you actually make your table. If you use the default table, I would suggest maybe doing 1 on each side at least, maybe 2 on one side and 1 on the very head. So something like that. So this fills up this room pretty nicely, and there's not much else you need to do in here. Something you could do is put a chandelier. You probably will have to scale this one. Well, actually, the ceiling's big enough in this one. Depending on the type of building, you may have to scale this. Obviously, if you don't want it as low, you can make it smaller, and that'll fix that problem. Alright, so that's pretty good for a dining room, and that's 2 out of the 5 rooms taken care of. In this room, you should probably have some sort of kitchen. So I'm going to use 2 of these counter types, counter 1 and counter 2, and I will be rotating these as well. And of course, when creating these counters, the best snap transform is 0.5. So just keep that in mind as you're creating these as well. And you guys can make this pretty much as large as you want or as small as you want. This is going to work right now for the space we have. I would also suggest putting some sort of fridge or stove or oven, not stove, inside of your kitchen as well. That'll just make it more realistic. It'll have more of the utilities that people use inside a kitchen. So we've got our fridge here, and I will place the stove down as well. Now if you guys have extra room in here, you could do a couple things. So one thing you could do is place maybe more counters. That would definitely work. You could put another smaller set of tables and chairs, but I'm actually going to put a shelf down just because it sort of represents a pantry, something like that. So you could definitely do any of those and they would all work. Alright, so here's our kitchen. It's pretty filled. There's a couple things you can actually put on the counters, including a toaster, a microwave, and a coffee machine. So obviously putting all of these on this small counter is going to look pretty crowded, but pick and choose what you want, and definitely don't forget about these. They're a good way to add a little more detail to your kitchen. Alright, so there's the kitchen. Obviously it's a little cluttered, but you guys can straighten it up a little better. So there's 2 other rooms, and pretty much I'm going to use one of those other rooms as a storage room. You can store all sorts of stuff inside it. Generally I'm going to be using shelf number 3, shelf number 1, and wardrobe number 3. This is actually more of a gun closet. So I'm going to grab all 3 of these here. And let's start by placing some shelf number 1s. These are really good for using up space. They're quite large. You can actually leave room on all sides of these, and it's not odd because they can be accessed from all sides. So that's definitely an option. I'm just going to put 2 of these at the end of the room though and fill up the rest of the space with normal shelves and the extra wardrobe. So I'm going to use the normal shelf here, and I'm going to scoot it back against the wall, and I'm going to create 2 of them here. Actually, there may not be room. That'll work. So 2 fits, that'll work. And also I'm going to be using the wardrobe number 3 as well. And this one's actually originated in Russia, so if you guys are wondering about that or why you haven't seen it, that would be why. So some of the spawns you can have throughout this building actually are sort of like cloth, wire, rope, stuff like that in main areas, maybe some glue, sketchy stuff, normal stuff, some kitchen supplies, food, kitchen knives, stuff like that in here. Also in the storage area you can have just about anything. You could have metal scraps, nails, cans. If you do use a gun rack, you could have some guns in here. It's not uncommon to have sporting clubs that include a golf course to have some sort of shooting range, so that would definitely fit as well. Alright, so what you can do in this last room, there's a couple things. You could either make another sort of dining area that would not be out of place. You could do another sort of hangout area with maybe a pool table by itself in there. Pool table is pretty large. It would fill up this room pretty easily. You could do another television or something like that. There's not much more room, so I'm going to set up just like a basic card table in here. I probably could fit 2, but I don't want to fill up the space too much. I'm also going to put this couch number 2 in here, sort of like a small reading area, something like that. And I will be using a lamp number 2 just so that they've got a little bit of reading light as well. So I'm going to be using another chair as well, just because if you have like a card table, something like that, you should put some chairs around it. Now, of course, chairs are optional, guys. It depends on how destroyed your decoration and detail is. I generally like to have mine a little more pristine, more like, not much destruction has actually happened. And of course, throughout this entire place, you can do newspapers, or you can put chessboards all over. Both would be common sort of items to see in this area. So, for example, on our card table, if we wanted to have a chessboard or a newspaper, that would just add a little more detail and it would look pretty nice. For a chessboard, we could put that pretty much anywhere. We could put it on the main dining room table even, and just put it near the corner like two people were playing. Another one of those items that you can put pretty much anywhere is books. You can scatter them around on any sort of sitting area, in any sort of shelf in here, anything like that. Books always look good. Also, you can decorate using a clock. It's always a good idea to have a clock in your main buildings. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this large building. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of how to do that. Let's move on to some of those smaller buildings. Now, as I mentioned before, these two smaller lodge buildings could be something like that a janitor would stay in. I'm actually going to use lodge number 3 because I like it a little better. It's a little more simple, doesn't include a porch, and it's a little smaller actually, so I can put it in weirder places. So I'm actually going to place this one, sort of near the center of the course, and generally these janitor buildings and stuff aren't usually at the front of the course. They're usually off to the side somewhere. So this will work pretty well for what I need it to. And this one's going to be very much more simplified than the other one. It's pretty much going to be a really simple house. So I'm going to put a bed down. I'm going to use bed number 2. It'll be the small one. I'm also going to put some sort of bedside table. I'm going to use one of the small ones, wood number 4, I think. Yeah, that one works pretty well. Wood number 3 is about the same thing, except it's got the white legs. I'm also going to use lamp number 1, because that one is the nice small reading lamp as well. So that would work. Of course, you guys can decorate that table with newspaper, book, any one of the notes, something like that. So for the rest of the room, you should have some sort of counter set up. I'm going to put counters number 3 and 4 over here in the corner. I'm going to set those up real quick. So that's pretty much it for the counters. I wouldn't put much more than 4 in there just because there isn't much room. I'm also going to put a fridge because counters in a fridge is pretty much what a basic kitchen needs. That's pretty much the basic necessities. And as I mentioned before, you can put a microwave or a toaster, something like that there as well if you feel like it. So another thing I'm going to place in here is couch number 2. This will be like a personal reading chair. I'll pretty much set it up exactly the same as I did in the other place. I'll put a lamp by it as well. That always looks pretty good by itself. Takes up a little bit of room, fills up that corner. And we've got only this much left. So I'm going to put a wardrobe down to hold the person's clothes. I'm going to put that one right next to the bed. And when you're doing these sort of things, make sure that the door doesn't glitch too far into other objects. Like this is fine a little bit, but if it glitched all the way into it, it would look pretty weird. And for that last bit of space, I'm going to put a shelf number 3. And I think that will fill the rest of it up for me. So that's pretty much how you should do one of these janitor or groundskeeper's houses. And that's pretty much it for the golf course. Now obviously there's going to be a lot of issues with how you want to space it, how you want to decorate it. A few of the other things you can do to decorate it is use resources. You can custom place trees around your golf course. That definitely looks good. You can even make tree boundaries. So for example, when they need to hit over the trees to get into that second part of the course, that'll definitely look good as well. You can even sort of put trees, in the middle of your course. And it looks like it's on the middle of the course, but it's actually underneath. So just be aware of that. And you can also put bushes. Those look really good as well. So for example, you can put bushes around the edges, and that always adds a nice touch. So anyway guys, hopefully that gives you a good idea of how to create your golf course. Obviously feel free to experiment with this and make it as elaborate or as large as you want. Anyway guys, thank you guys for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you want to see some more. I will see you all later.